Vic, and I'm going to show you how to do a brake job on a Chevy Avalanche. Today I'm going to do a brake job on a 05 Chevy Avalanche. Here's the truck over here. As you can see, it's a used model, it's an 05. One of the things I have already done to it is put aftermarket tires and rims on it. The tires and rims on it now are 22 inches. The original ones were 17 inches. If you take a look at the tire, you can see the disc brake right through the spokes on the aluminum rim. Notice how small the disc brake system looks on that thing with those massive tires and rims on it. What we're going to do is put bigger rotors with replacement caliper brackets, which are accommodating the bigger rotors, and we're going to have much stronger braking. It's going to be approximately 33% better than it was originally. Okay, what we got over here is our 14-inch replacement rotors. These are the front ones, these are the back ones. They're directional, so you got to put it on the right side and the left side in the correct positions, in the correct spots, obviously. Here are the replacement caliper brackets. So you can put your stock calipers back on without spending extra money for no good reason. Anyways, you're going to need floor stands, you're going to need a floor jack, a breaker bar, and some hand tools. And over here we have the brake pads. They're ceramic brake pads. These ones are made by Monroe. The reason why I like Monroe over other brands is they actually come with the hardware. So you could be in the middle of a brake job on a weekend and find out, oh, one of the clips is broken. Shit. Where am I going to get a clip from? Well, guess what? It comes with it. So you don't have to deal with those passes. All right, let's get to the brake job. Okay, I got my floor jack. I'm going to roll it underneath the vehicle. I'm going to actually jack up one axle at a time and do this at one side at a time because not everybody has all the tools available. Okay, so I'm going to roll this jack underneath the control arm. Put it in a safe spot and start jacking it up. Okay, I'm going to leave it like this. You don't have to have the wheel too far off the ground. This is more than high enough. Alrighty. So you need a breaker bar. I actually already broke off all the nuts. They're all loose. So what I'm going to do is use my Colt 45. Okay, it's a pretty good idea to get a screwdriver, slide it into the caliper hole, and push the pistons into the caliper, which makes it much easier to remove the caliper itself. Okay, that's good enough. In this particular truck, 18mm socket. We'll take out the two caliper bolts. There's one on the top and the bottom. I already loosened them off, obviously. Two. Grab the caliper, give it a little wiggle, slide her out. Move it out of the way. Careful you don't pull or stretch that hose or pinch it. Alrighty, brake pads. These pads are still in pretty good shape, but since we're putting, actually no they're not. I'll show you why. The outer pad looks like brand new. The inner pad, where the piston's actually pushing against it, is pretty well done its service life. Okay. Next up, remove the caliper bracket. There's two bolts back here. Same thing, 18mm. To remove the bolts, I've already loosened them with a breaker bar. Take the bolts off. Careful you don't lose them. Okay, got the second bolt off, I got the caliper bracket off, and now I'm going to pull the rotor off. Careful you don't drop the caliper when you do this. Okay. Time for the fun stuff. You got to push the pistons inside the caliper back in order. What happens is when your brake pads wear out, the pistons compensate for it and come out and take up that extra space so your brakes don't wobble and make noises. And when you put new brake pads on, you need to push those pistons back in because obviously the new brake pads are full thickness. You can see they're going in. They haven't quite gone in quite enough yet. Still got to put them in. Best way to do this really is either with a caliper compressor or a simple carpenter's clamp, where you put your brake pad here, put the carpenter clamp between the front of the pad and the back of the caliper, and you just tighten the bolt on the clamp and it'll just squeeze these right back in. Okay, so I have everything apart. I got my new rotor over here. Here's the old rotor. You can see there's quite a bit of a difference in size. I'm going to go ahead and slap the rotor on. Now these are directional, so you got to make sure you're putting the right one on the right side. It's actually stamped on it with an R right beside the parts number. Okay, so the rotor's in. Now I'm going to get the replacement caliper bracket and install this next. So this slides over this like that. Get the fastening bolts. Oops. Got to kind of wiggle it around and find a hole. Okay, got that one on. Okay. Now it's a pretty good idea to get a bolt and put it in to hold the caliper, or I should say the rotor, against the bearing seat, hub seat. Okay, so that's nice and sturdy. Okay, so I got the ratchet. Tightening back the caliper brackets. Okay, you're going to want to torque these down. I don't have a torque wrench with me, but I'm going to use the breaker bar. I have quite a pretty good idea of the pressure I need to make it to approximately 60 foot-pounds. Okay, that one's good. Okay, so that's all tight. Next step is to put the brake pad metal clips on the top and bottom of the bracket. Okay, so now that I have the caliper bracket fastened and I got the rotor on, I'm going to go ahead and put on these metal sliders for the brake pads. I'm going to mess around with them a little bit, they're a little tight. Go in there, don't want to tap it. Be gentle though, you don't want to bend it. Pretty well locks into place, like so. And the top one. This hardware actually came with the brake pads that I mentioned earlier. Same deal over here, you can tap it a little bit. It's kind of like a compressed, springy fitting. It just kind of snaps on. Bitch. I want to cut that. There it goes. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, so the sliders are on. Next step would be, Monroe actually gives you lubricant. These are not for the pads. You do not put them on the pads. I see a lot of videos where people say we put silicone on the pads to keep them quiet. You do not put silicone on the pad. Some people put it on the back to prevent it from squealing, and when the pad wears out, prevent it from vibrating because the silicone actually sticks the pad to the caliper. So I'm not going to put anything on it there because I think it's fine, but I am going to put a very, very slight little bit of brakes lubricant on the slider. Just spread it with my glove. You don't want to get it on the pads. Put some on my finger here to the top one. This will assure there's no binding when you apply the brakes and the pads compress. Okay, I'm going to take this glove off. Okay, the pads have an inner and outer. You always want to put the inner one with the sensor clip on it over here. What happens is when your pad wears out, it starts squealing. Obviously this is a pad that's going to wear out first. I showed you earlier on this video how the old pad looked. Okay, so I'm going to slide this on. Okay, so I have the aftermarket caliper bracket, and what am I going to do is put the disc brake pads on first before I actually install it onto the rotor, or you won't be able to put on the caliper or the pad. So I'm going to slide on, make sure you put them on in the right way. I'm going to slide on the one that would be on the outside of the caliper first. Just got to play with it a little bit to get it in there. You can see I installed new slider that came with the brake pads. Oops, there we go. There we go. Okay, you just slide it right to the end, and it's actually got a stopper on it, so it'll stop. You'll know you're at the end. And you just give it a little tap to get it over that little spring there. Just be gentle with it. You don't want to break the braking material. Okay. It's going to have a little bit of resistance. That's what this plate's for. It holds the pads in place and keeps them from vibrating. Okay, so I got that one in. Now I'm going to put the inner one in. The inner one has the little feeler over here, so when your brake pads wear out, it starts squealing before you get down to your rotors and damage your rotors. Same idea. I'm going to slide it in on an angle, and then I'm going to pull it out. You could actually put the inner one on after I got the caliper bracket on the car, but I'm going to just put it on since I have it off anyway. Just got to just jig a little bit. You want it to have enough space so you can get in between the rotor over here. Just bring her back a little bit more. Let's see if he goes on. And this installs like so. Oh, I just moved the brake pad. Yeah, I need a little bit more space. Alright. Just put her down. Gently pull it up. There you go. I actually went too much and I popped it out. There we go. Now we got it. Now all these parts actually came plain metal. They didn't have any paint on them. I actually painted everything to keep them cleaner for a longer period of time, which is a good idea, but they are zinc plated so they don't rust very easily. Okay, so I got that back on. I'm going to slide the bolt in. Might want to move it around a little bit to get the bolt to catch. There we go. Got one to catch. And then the bottom one. Bottom one in pretty easy. Okay, so now tighten down the caliper bracket. I'm going to use the ratchet first, and then I'm going to give it a little torque with the breaker bar. Oops. Okay, so I got that snugged up. I'm going to take the socket off, put it on the breaker bar. You want to make sure that it's tight, because after all, stopping your truck, all the pressure is going onto those two little bolts there. There we go. Give her a little crank. Approximately 60 foot-pounds will be good. I know what that feels like, believe it or not. Alright, that's all on nice and tight. I got the brake pads in. I'm just pressing the inner one. It slipped out again. Inner one, not a real big deal. The outer one, you'll not be able to put it on unless you actually have the caliper bracket off. Okay, so that's all together. Next step is to throw the caliper on. What I want to do, these are the caliper pins. Since this is a new caliper bracket, it has no grease in it, so I want to really grease this thing up so it's got a lot of grease in there. You don't use any grease. This is actually silicone brake grease. If you use regular grease, it's going to dry up and you're going to have problems. Okay, so I'm going to put this one down. grab the other one. Make sure there's no debris on it. It's kind of a dirty floor. Grease it up. You don't want to get this on your brake pads. Okay, so I have the 2 bolts greased up, ready to go. Okay, now that I got the pads in, sitting on the caliper bracket, I'm going to grab the caliper. Just be careful you don't pinch that hose or twist it when you're doing this. Bring it along. I'm going to push in against the little rubbers on the back here where the pins slide in. And then slide the caliper on. There we go. And then I'm going to grab the pins that I just greased up. It's got a little bit too much grease on it. And just kind of like feather it down a little bit. Just let the right go. Okay, slide in the top pin. You gotta be careful you don't put too much grease in there, or you won't even be able to put the bolt in. It'll work like a cylinder piston, and it'll seal it because the grease is so thick it actually works as a sealant. Just feather this one a little bit. Okay, slide it in the bottom. Just move this out. So make sure you got the little rubbers with the holes protruding through so you can line her up. Okay, I got that one in. Okay, so I got the caliper pins in. I'm just going to tighten them up. Okay, now that we got everything assembled, I'm going to throw the wheel back on. Last one's back in. Okay, that wheel's on, that's done. I'm going to torque it with the breaker bar when I have the wheel down. Well, that's it then. We got the new brake system in, front and back. We didn't show you doing the back one, but the back and the front is exactly the same. The only difference between them is the back one's got a parking brake, which is internal, something you don't have to worry about. But it is a good idea to inspect the pads for the parking brake as you're doing the job. Obviously, you don't want to put it together and then replace the pads later on, taking it all apart again. Anyways, thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching this video. Hope to see you again on the next one.